Welcome to Truth Talkin Thursday. This is Jim. I'm Jane. I've been reading a book, and Jim and I were just discussing it a little bit before I hit record there. And the author is discussing ego, our ego. And it's triggered a lot of thoughts in my mind. And I'm curious what ego means to you.
To me?
Yes.
What does it mean to me? Wow. I often think that my ego and the size of my head are not the same things.
What's the ratio difference there? How are we doing this?
Well, I think generally speaking, on a serious note, I think generally speaking, a lot of people really don't understand their ego and what role it plays in the course of their lives. That my ego is very healthy, and then that's that, and I'm not going to, I don't want to discuss it. Well, just the fact that you don't want to discuss it tells me that your ego is not healthy. Ego isn't something you defend. It's something that helps you to guide the quality of your life on a day-to-day basis. If you've got an ego the size of Baltimore, you're not likely going to do well with people.
Well, I used to think, before reading this book, before actually, I guess, being open to the thoughts expressed, in my mind, ego would have been cocky. And I don't think I feel that anyway. I don't think I feel that anymore, is what I meant to say. Mm-hmm. And I'm just wondering what you think about this. So, from what I understand this author to be conveying, our ego, it isn't necessarily only a bad thing. It's like a driving force in us, pointing us good and bad, almost like it arises in protection. But having said that, it's not necessarily always logical or to be trusted. There are times ego needs to be put down because it's not healthy or helpful to us.
I wonder if your ego is totally to blame for you being competitive, or whether that's a belief system, whether that's something else besides ego. Competition
isn't wrong. There's nothing wrong with
Absolutely
competition.
Not. But how does your ego fit into that? I mean, if you win, does that stroke your ego? If you lose, does that antagonize the piece that you're calling an ego?
I'm just thinking about the way in which you win or lose.
Well, if you don't shoot them, I think anything else is pretty.
if I'm running a race and I trip my competitor, how is that winning?
Well,
fairly?
That's not very nice.
No, that's just rude. Nice. Well, it's the same thing if you're trashing somebody.
But at the end of the day, you haven't won anything.
Exactly.
So how does your ego deal with that?
In my head, after reading this book, I'm thinking my ego would be finding ways to justify what I did, mm-hmm. or what it made me do, or what I consented to do when it presented it. I don't know. What mm-hmm. You tell me what you think ego is.
Well, I think for most of us, it's a mess.
It's a hot mess.
I think for a lot of folks, we don't spend a lot of time talking about ego, unless we're talking about it in a negative sense for the most part. There's a guy, he needs an ego adjustment, that boy, or an attitude adjustment. And some people consider attitudes and egos. And
so do our egos control us?
I would like to say no to that.
Okay. Why? Why would you say no to that?
Well, I mean, ego is a part of the psyche or part of this. I mean, is it part of your mental makeup? Is it part of your spiritual makeup? Is it part of, I mean, where does it reside in us, or does it reside anywhere, or is it I mean, there's so many questions that can be asked, and I certainly don't have the answers to all of that stuff. I don't know that many people really think or care about it. And I think it's extremely important because you said earlier, and I believe that to be true, is I believe that ego is sort of our life force. It's to me, We were talking about truths earlier. To me, that's my truth. My ego.
Your ego is your truth.
I need to depend on my ego to keep me safe, and not just physically safe, but mentally safe. I can't go.
Okay, so how does your ego do that? Could you give me an example of how your ego keeps you safe?
Well, I would go back and ask another question. Is ego and conscience the same? Or are they close to the same? Or is one a byproduct of the other? Is my conscience a byproduct of my ego? Because
they
my
seem
conscience,
like they would be pretty intertwined.
Yeah, so my conscience would determine my behavior. Well, I can't do that. I mean, I really, I'm running a race, and we use your analogy. Well, I'm running a race. I'm not going to trip somebody to win. I mean, that's not a win. My conscience would tell me, you can't do that.
And your ego would follow that up by saying, you really wouldn't be winning if you did that.
And it depends on how I fed my ego along the way, in terms of my lifestyle,
so
my life energy.
That's how the ego becomes good or bad.
Does ego speak for you, or does it guide you? I think before we get carried away with individually as people, as human beings, you were asking me what I thought of it. I think before I give my ego more of my conscious being than is healthy for me, I need to answer a few of those questions. I need to do an awful lot more research, and what I have to do with that is I have to be 100%, and I don't know whether anybody can be 100% honest with themselves or not. But I have to be as genuinely honest with myself as I possibly can be, in order for my ego to treat me well. And we're talking about it like it's an outside entity of us, and it's not.
So is ego? You know how in the cartoons you see the little devil and the angel sitting on people's shoulders? So is that ego?
Ego and id is another part of that whole process. That whole
like I'm just
system.
In my head as you were just talking, I was just thinking, okay, so your conscience is what says no, don't do that, or yes, you really should do that. That's the right thing to do. Your conscience says that, and then your ego backs it up.
I think it's a fascinating question. I would much rather live a life that's full of pleasure than I would a life full of pain. And if I don't know what drives me on a day-to-day basis in terms of doing what I do and how I do it and how I involve other people, or do I involve other people, and how do I treat other people, and do I give enough of myself to other people to help them along their way, or do I give too much? And so all of those kind of questions, I need to think about those things before I decide how my ego is going to run my life. Mm-hmm. Because I think ego is really kind of, I don't know that I consciously include my ego in everything I do.
Mm-hmm. I think I would agree with that. I think those are very good points. I think those are great questions to ask.
Most people don't ask them,
No.
and that's the unfortunate piece.
Yeah.
They don't either ask, they don't know what to ask, or they don't care.
Yeah.
And any one of those two or three things is really sad.
It really is. It really is. And I think we're at a point for all of us that we need to start giving more thought. We need to start thinking for ourselves, using some of those tools that we have to sort through things, listening to others, being open to other ways of thinking, and ultimately making our own decisions based on our conscience and our ego and the truth that is ours. I think that's important.
Absolutely.
So have a great week, everybody.
Enjoy your ego trip.